What's happening?
Not much. I was thinking I was writing down a list of topics to talk about that I had in mind.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a single one. My list
Oh,
was
that's
empty.
good. That's real good.
I have the empty list.
Um,
But I think what I was fascinated by this week that I think we've talked a little bit about is like these Twitch people that just stream weird things.
yeah, who was that guy you found? He seemed pretty cool. He was doing Agda or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Some guy I think is I forget how I found him. I'm on like the FP chat Slack group, and then he just like posted like, "Hey, I'm hacking on this," and then like I clicked in and watched it. But obviously, it's just like showing up behind some guy on the computer, and you just have no idea what they're doing.
Of
Like,
course, yeah.
but there were three or four other people there. What are they doing? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it?
It's very strange.
Does Twitch have like an easy way to like find out about the person and like, what their whole shtick is on there? Or is it more just like tune in and deal with it?
I think it's more tune in and deal with. Like I've tried because I follow these people that play Go on there, but
Mm,
they're all super proficient Twitch users. So you scroll down and they've got like a world of information. And
yeah.
frankly, I can't understand a thing that they're talking about. And like,
Yeah.
I think the most I've been able to work out so far is that you can like, I think you can buy emojis, but that's about all I know
In Go.
on Twitch.
Oh, on Twitch.
In Go would be much more fun. If you're losing, just buy a. Can I have a smiley face?
Yeah, you can use like emoji icons instead of your Go stones.
Yeah, that would. That'd
Now
be
we're talking. We just monetized Go right here.
We've done it. What a significant improvement. What would you call it? Gomoji. Gomoji, not bad. Gomoji. Yeah, I'm gonna write that
Yeah,
down.
that ain't bad. And I think we just found our title for episode 4, which
Oh,
might
great.
be I can't understand a single thing you're talking about. If I can
Excellent.
pronounce that, which I can't. It's a bit of a tongue twister. Anything's a tongue twister when you're tired enough.
That's true. Yeah.
That
What
one
have you been?
especially.
What have you been up to?
Um, I've been hating life with GitHub Actions,
Yeah.
um, is the main thing. And I don't even understand why. I thought I kind of did understand why, but I didn't. So I was like, I have a work project and I was trying to add some actions. Makes sense.
Pretty
Um,
sensible.
and so I added a Haskell action, and then that didn't work. And
Yeah.
so after a lot of kind of pulling my hair out, I decided, well, I'll do a kind of smaller proof of concept project and do actions on that. And so I spent a while getting that to work, and I got it to work. And then I questioned one of the assumptions I'd made, which was that the actual Haskell action doesn't work because I found it
Yeah.
didn't work, right? So I did my own kind of custom action with GHC up.
Right. Right. Right.
And then I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe it does work because I couldn't get GHC up to work on the work project either. So I'm like, well, I'll try using the action again on my proof of concept project. And it did work. So I'm like, very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know. Like I'm in this weird world where the action kind of definition is identical on the work version and the proof of concept version,
But
except
they
the
just.
proof of concept version gives me an error which is like can't install. Oh no, the proof of concept one works fine. It like installs everything and runs.
Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
work one is like can't install GHC. I'm like,
Yeah.
I would have assumed it would get past the installing GHC part on both of them, but I don't
Yeah.
know if there's like a hidden extra config file that says like mess with Linden in the work repo, because
Almost
that would
definitely.
be nice to
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
out about that. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's been bad. But the plus side is that I got a this proof of concept working. So if I go to any old directory, I guess. Um, I call it Path Explorer, and so
Is your screen shared?
yeah, you can't see it,
I can
but
just imagine. I'll imagine what it does.
actually no, I'll just do that because it's going to be annoying to
Yeah,
set up.
yeah, yeah,
But yeah, I run this Path Explorer, and then you get a command, and it kind of shows you the output. But you can
yeah.
toggle your path to kind of see what exactly is going wrong. Um, so then last night I kind of presented it at the Haskell meetup, and then one cool thing that they suggested was that we can like do some pagination, so I can paginate the output.
Pretty
And
good.
then they were like, "Oh, can you actually reorder your path?" And that I think is kind of useful because it's quite annoying to reorder your path if you've ever
Very
like had
annoying.
a long path. And
So
so,
annoying.
yeah, like in your mind now, Noon, you are imagining me reordering my path,
Incredible.
and it's all
And is it
working.
working? Yeah, oh, that's
Yeah, it's
amazing.
working.
What are the
And
keys to reorder the path? That's so exciting.
the
Page up and
keys are, yeah, they're Control D and Control U to move things down and
pretty
up.
good. Pretty
So
good. Pretty
anyway,
good.
yeah, and then you hit Q and it prints the kind of resulting path that you've
That's
customized.
great.
And so, yeah,
I
it
actually
was fun.
remember. I remember when Windows decided finally, maybe it's only recently, they've decided finally to allow people to edit their path
Hmm.
in a structured way like that.
Hmm.
They've got a little actual structured editor now. Not as
Yeah.
good as Path Explorer,
Yeah.
but still, still something.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah. I
like
find
endlessly frustrating.
I didn't hate the Windows one because it was very easy to customize like OS level paths that just worked for everything. Whereas
Yeah,
in Unix and OS X especially, it can be quite annoying to do that. Like once you're in your shell, it's fine. But it's like if there's going to be some daemon running that and you need it to have some path thing set, it can be
true,
very frustrating if you can't kind of write a hook around it somehow. And I've
true,
had
true,
that
true.
bite me quite a lot. Yet whereas
Yeah,
Windows, like, yeah, you kind of open up the settings and at least it applies like OS wide.
yeah.
But meh,
I think I even learned recently that in that little cron tab file, you can specify a shell,
yeah. Yeah, that's true. And then
which
some
I
of the shells make it hard as well because
didn't
they're
quite
like,
know.
well, this is like a interactive shell or a login shell or whatever, and it's like that all affects which things get sourced and
Yeah,
stuff like that. So it can be quite a nightmare to debug this stuff if the thing that you're trying to test like only runs on boot or something. Then you're like, oh God.
yeah, 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 yeah. Quite frustrating.
But oh well, at least
Yeah,
yeah, we
yeah.
can all agree having a
He,
structured editor is very nice.
amazing. Yeah. Here's another. I just have another random thought that just occurred to me, which is like I've been using Hackle to make all
Mm,
my websites, right?
yeah.
Which is kind of for people that don't know, it's like Jekyll,
Mm,
but in Haskell. And what you can do, I assume you can do it in Jekyll as well, is you can like render the entire page. Sorry, what you can do is you can, in your little program, you can construct a string who is the rendering of the entire page. Then you can embed that in another page. What I'm trying to get at that I won't be able
mm,
to demonstrate very well is you can like make a recursive website. So if you accidentally, like what I wanted to do was, because I recently updated my BrainShop website
yeah.
and I wanted to move the blog, one of the blogs, to the home page.
Yeah.
And the way the blog is rendered is, of course, there's a blog post template, but
Mm,
then onto that gets applied the entire the entire website
I
template.
gotcha. Yeah.
And if you render the entire website rendered version of the blog post within the region allocated to only the blog post, you
Mm.
get your entire website twice.
Why only twice? Wouldn't it do it lots of times?
No, because I think you first rendered the inside one,
Right. Oh, I
then you
see.
rendered the
Yeah, yeah,
outside
yeah,
one.
yeah. Yeah, so it recurses up to the top level one rather than
Exactly,
being truly
exactly,
recursive. I get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so, like, so that was just funny, I thought, when
That
I
is
did it.
funny.
And I was
Yeah.
just thinking, like, imagine, I was just thinking about what you said about like on boot, like having a, and where it's like super annoying because you have to restart your whole computer or something, which is obviously stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, what if you could, wouldn't it be great if you could just kind of like take that little subset of code and just like, like you can't do this, but like imagine you wanted to check something in your own computer on boot
Yeah.
where you could just run it in like a Docker image up till boot or something. Do you know what I mean?
I
Like you could
think,
take
yeah,
like
that
that
sounds
chunk of
really great.
code.
Yeah.
I don't know how you'd pull that off, but you know what? It'd be like so convenient because you're just like, oh well, this little chunk of thing, I just want to like run it here, totally independent of anything else. But you know what I'm, trying to say?
Yeah, I do. It sounds real useful and like a good idea. So
Yeah,
yeah, like the how that actually kind of interacts with the other kind of components is, I guess, tricky or like a
very,
decision.
very true.
But yeah,
Yeah,
like I like that idea of like just being able to kind of debug just what you care about in its correct
yeah,
context. But
yeah.
yeah, anyway, whatever.
Anywho,
Yeah. So there, I got that paper you linked me to as well. That looked very
yeah.
interesting. The how do you say it? Jensen Mintz Zucker duality,
Mm.
which what they should have done, in my opinion, is
Hmm.
called that a triality because there's three
There's three. Yeah.
authors. I think they're not talking about the authors with respect to the duality, but I like the word triality. It's much better.
That's a very good point. Yeah.
But yeah, I don't fully get what they're talking about, but I think basically kind of like they're saying rather than kind of um, establish a correspondence between like types and terms and propositions and proofs, they want to kind of establish a correspondence between the categories in which these things can kind of be objects in, which I think ultimately kind of achieves the same thing, but it's just like a more elegant way to do it, I believe,
Oh,
is
okay.
my understanding.
Why
But
would you even want to do that? Like just for the fun of it?
um,
Like, does it let you do something else? That's what I was trying to understand is like, what does it let you do? And then I was only having like they're like the narrative is hardly a perfect fit.
well, I guess like it lets you write stuff in terms of like sequence calculus and equate that to lambda calculus rather than having to necessarily kind of do it directly in type theory or something like that.
Yeah. Okay.
But like you would do in a kind of like Agda Curry Howard style way, I think this maybe is like a more elegant way to do um, stating your proofs and kind of relating them
Yeah.
potentially. Not sure, not sure. But that's upon reading the abstract, that's how I interpret it. But who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, if someone wants to talk about that, that's going to be amazing because it sounds real good. The other one, I came across two other things this morning. I found someone had posted their own mini Canron implementation in J. So that's pretty
Their own
fun.
what? Their own what?
Mini Canron. So it's like a real kind of small logic language.
Oh, okay.
It was first
Oh,
kind of
in J. We
published.
love.
Yeah. So that was first published as like a scheme um, program or something like that,
Yeah.
a library. So it's like it lets you embed like logic style programs inside your program,
Yeah.
um, which is useful. It's not like a full Prolog or anything. It's just kind of like lets you, equate various logical expressions and have some kind of recursive rules, and that's it. And
Yeah.
then it solves it. So yeah, like being able to do that is still very useful. Um, and that's called Mini Canron in abstractly. And it's got
Yeah.
implementations all over the place. Like there's Clojure ones, there's C ones, there's Lisp ones, there's
Yeah.
Haskell ones, and now
Yeah.
there's J. But it's interesting because like the nature of the problem seems like very symbolic and recursive, and those are two things which J is not particularly good at.
Yeah.
It's more about like nested arrays of numbers or matrices of numbers or whatever. That's what J's good at.
Yeah.
But actually, reading their paper, they talk about how they've got a couple of primitives that they use that make things very easy. And so they've actually got like some tree primitives, which let you kind of like do various kinds of traversals of your tree, rewriting the nodes and stuff like that, which is quite
Yeah.
cool. And then they've got kind of a fixed point combinator, which lets you recursively apply a function until it hits a fixed point.
That's
And so
cool.
the two of those kind of like take care of all the necessary kind of recursive style stuff.
Did
And
they
then,
say why they
yeah.
want this in J? Did he? Did they say
Um,
what it was
why? What is
about? What a rude
what?
question too. I'm just
um,
noticing the author works at a hospital.
a hospital, yeah, that's true. Switzerland.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't
I thought that
know
was
why.
interesting.
Um, I can't spot anything about why. Um,
The racket version.
oh, here we go. To provide a prototype implementation based on arrays with the long-term goals of exploring adaptations of logic programming to the paradigm of vector processing, and secondly, developing a logic
Yeah,
language hosted on vector platforms such as graphical or GPUs,
pretty good.
um, or that can make use of SIMD instructions like modern CPUs. So
Yeah,
yeah, I guess it's kind of like, can you do efficient um, logic in a kind of parallel context, and can you do like efficient parallel programming in a logic context? Well, with this, as long as you're not needing like uh, Postgres library, then you can.
this picture at the top of page 4.
Yeah,
What is that? Like, do you know what that is?
yeah.
Like,
What that is, that's Jay's boxed. It's Jay's kind of like output debugger showing display kind of diagrams, and what it's displaying here are arrays of boxed values. So a
I
box is
see.
just kind of like a pointer in J. You can put anything inside it,
Yeah,
and those look like, unsurprisingly, little ASCII art boxes.
yeah,
Um, and so you can have anything inside them. In this case, they either have at the top level you actually have an array, and then there's two boxes, and each box has either a value or another array, and
yes.
the values in this case are just like characters, I guess.
I see.
Um,
I see.
so yeah, right.
Yes,
Um,
I
it's
think that makes
kind of
sense.
like a kind of like C style language in some ways in terms of like its values. In that, yeah, there's kind of primitive values and then there's reference values.
Yeah, I see.
Um, and you generally want to avoid the reference values if you can because they are slowish in some cases. It's still a
Yeah,
very fast language, but yeah, if I had kind of more efficient screen sharing, I would show you some examples. I've got, yeah, I don't have it installed, so I
it's real cool.
can't show you. But yeah, it is. It's really cool. What else can I say about it? Um, they've kind of like show this nice table correspondence between scheme and J, um,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. So if you're already familiar with the things you need to implement Mini can run in Scheme, you can be like, oh yeah, here's the equivalence in J. So that's pretty cool.
oh, I see. Yeah.
And then the third thing I found this morning was a 1998 video manual for Mercedes Benz, which someone posted on like the Vaporwave Reddit. Really funny.
Is it hard to distinguish if it actually is vaporwave or?
sometimes it's hard to know if it's truly vaporwave or if it's
Yeah,
just kind of like nostalgia or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. But yeah, that's pretty funny.
That
Um,
is funny.
yeah. So yeah. Do you want to like discuss anything this morning? Any topics
I
on your
think
mind?
like one thing that's been on my mind that I've been thinking about because like my brain shop business, I've decided to shut it down,
Hmm.
and I was just thinking like there seems to be like at least several kinds of businesses. One is the kind that like doesn't make enough money,
Yeah.
because like they're not good enough at marketing.
Yeah.
And like maybe Brain Shop fits in that category.
Yeah.
But then there's other businesses that are kind of like making heaps of money, right? But
Yeah.
maybe
Make tons. Yeah.
just tons and tons of money. But maybe like the software that they write isn't perfect,
Mm.
right? And the decisions they make, maybe they're not the world's best decisions, but they
That's
still
true.
make money.
They
And
should
then
be.
I was just kind of like interested in that,
Yeah.
which is like, well, it feels like, should you sit around trying to make really good decisions or should you make money? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what
Well, I
I'm
guess
trying to
it's, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, I guess, but
say?
it's
Yeah,
kind of like this fits into this kind of economic Darwinism kind of
true,
scenario,
true.
right? Where it's like ultimately, like the business has got to be kind of making money or it's going to not stick around for very long, or maybe
Yeah.
shouldn't be really called a business, you know. It, it certainly could be
Yeah,
like an undertaking that's funded by other businesses,
other activities.
but
Yeah,
it's in itself not really kind of like a profitable business.
yeah,
So yeah, I guess like there's that kind of context of the thing. So
yeah,
yeah, you got to be making money in some capacity, otherwise, you know, you're not going to be around to do business. But
yeah,
yeah, I guess like also it's like the interesting thing for me is like, can you kind of like separate out this notion of the money making part from the decision making part or
yeah,
something, and then kind of like do a bit of matchmaking somehow so that it's like, this person's like, oh, I've got such a great money making business. I can basically kind of like just wear my pants on my head and do stupid stuff all day long, and yet it still makes money.
right.
But like, I guess like what you would hope is that they're like, but maybe I could kind of like make even more money or like have a more pleasant day
Life.
if I
Yeah,
made some better decisions rather than just kind of like wearing my pants on my head.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
so then they would join forces with someone who's good at decisions and doing, sane things. And then they would together be greater than the sum of their parts. As a person who was like making just incredible decisions every day, instead of like trying to take a 30% cut on in-app purchases, which would make a lot of money. Instead, what they wanted to do was kind of develop uh, um, J interpreter for Mini Canron, which is very well done, but it's not going to make a lot of money anytime soon,
probably
I
not.
guess.
Not as far as
Um,
we know, anyway.
right.
Yeah,
But I mean, I suppose I'm just describing like employees at this point, right? But maybe there's kind of a more different way to think about it, where it's like
yeah,
they're actual kind of like business entities on their own, and then they
yeah,
just they just kind of like come together to make the magic happen.
yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, like you could imagine like this perfect world of like composable businesses,
Yeah,
where it's like you can just join together temporarily to like do this thing or do that
yeah.
thing.
Well, I suppose that's a consulting model in a way, but like,
True.
I don't know like how to say it, but most consultancies are not kind of like going to immediately, intuitively just like solve every problem and make decisions. Like partly because it's impossible, right? To
Yeah,
to
yeah,
even know what they need to do until they've worked together for some time. And then secondly, it's like, oh, there's a lot of kind of boundary issues about who does what and then that's even putting aside all of the kind of like dodgy consultancy stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but
But I wonder, I
yeah,
guess, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's just a bit too abstract, but or pointless. But I'm just kind of thinking like, well, like imagine you find some business and you want to work with them.
mm,
Well, you probably got to email them or talk to them or make them care
terrible.
about
Yeah,
you. Terrible idea.
yeah,
But then like I guess you do have businesses that are kind of like ultimately flexible and like they have APIs and you can
hmm,
like just register for their API and in a way that's kind of like consulting with them.
hmm,
You know, especially if you've got to pay money for what they have, you kind of
yeah,
like, you know, I don't know if it's a, do you know what I'm saying? And I just wonder like, oh, well, how far could you push that? Like, you know, how far into your actual business could you push APIs? Or maybe that's like
yeah,
a terrible
yeah.
idea.
Like what kind of like level of abstractness of the products of the API is possible? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I mean, I can like have an API that gives me sentiment on some text or something. It's like ultimately very concrete, like what the
Yeah.
product is, even though the idea is quite abstract. But like, what about an
Yeah.
abstract like,
Yeah. Yeah.
API that's like, well, it's going to kind of provide guidance in some form
Yeah.
on a
Exactly.
on a
It's gonna sit on my board and
decision or yeah,
yeah. Yeah.
like board
Exactly.
member API. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't know. It's
That
silly, but
reminds me, there was this kind of like, Mechanical Turk style approach that this app had called Magic, which was kind of like a personal assistant style app, which was
yeah.
powered by real people to do real stuff. And I think it was like
Yeah.
charge you $100 an hour to use this app
Yeah.
or something, which sounds ludicrous, but actually like depending on the thing that you're doing may not be too bad and might save you a lot of time. It's like,
Yeah.
you know, so it might be worth it sometimes. Um,
Yeah.
Especially if they've got like a bank of experts who they can like ping
Well,
immediately rather than
exactly.
you having to search around.
Yeah. I think like if there was that kind of trust there, that like if you did just pay the $100, you know, like all your problems would be solved. It's like
Yeah.
you just do it. Like why wouldn't you do it? You'd be kind of crazy not to do it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, like, I would have used it, I think, like, probably at least 10 times in the past if I, uh, had bothered to get it all set it up and knew that it was going to actually do what I wanted it to do. But
Yeah.
I guess I'm just like so cynical about these stupid apps that I'm like, oh,
Oh
it's
yeah,
probably
absolutely.
terrible and I'm just not going to bother. But
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
like
No,
something like that could be pretty useful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I got another weird thought to end on if you're into it.
Yeah, please.
It's this. Gala, so I was arguing with someone on LinkedIn, as I always do, you know, always arguing with people.
Oh,
But
yeah.
like because they posted something about like AI ethics, right?
Yeah.
And then like obviously it was all wrong. So I was like, well, I got real annoyed and I'm like, here's like why it's technically wrong, you know, and then other things like that. And then and then like Gala joined in and said other things that were wrong, which in many ways were like more important than what I pointed out.
Mm.
Then they deleted all the comments.
Oh,
And
yeah.
and
Right.
I was kind of thinking like, yeah, fine. Like maybe my comments were a bit too harsh or whatever.
Mm.
But Gala was kind of just thinking like Gala is a much more kind of um, she wants people to change more than like I kind of want them to feel bad for being stupid. Right?
Right.
So like she's kind of like asking them questions to like help them see how they could do something different. And Gala was just kind of saying like, why is it like it's very hard to have that kind of conversation online,
Mm.
you know, which is to kind of like genuinely say to someone like, hey, like here's the things that you've said that are, you know, you should go back and revisit and think about. Or like here's some questions you could ask. And I
Yeah.
was just thinking like, well, it's annoying on LinkedIn because well, either I post it on their thread and then they can just delete it if they don't like it,
Yeah.
or I could like go out of my way to make a whole big blog post about it or something, which just looks a little bit like intense and is just
Yeah.
a, you know what I mean? And it's just, Gala was
Yeah.
just kind of making the point that it's annoying that there's no kind of like middle ground forum, which is kind of like, do you know what I mean? That kind of like
Yeah.
promotes a bit more discussion.
Yeah. Well, I guess like, so what are the options? Yeah, you can reply in the comments, or you can, yeah, go off and kind of like abstract the idea into a blog post or something for a bit of a wider audience. Or
Yeah.
I guess you can like just direct message them maybe.
Yeah.
Um, the problem with the comments one, I guess, is it's like it'll make you look like an idiot. Um, if someone posts a comment about how much you are a terrible person, and
That's
so
right.
that's
Yeah.
not really like a place for growth usually. In
That's
in
right.
some circumstances,
Yeah.
maybe, but probably not
Yeah.
very often.
Probably not. Yeah.
Um, and then I guess like the blog post one's kind of nice because you can just link the person to your blog post, and if they don't get it, then so be it. But I guess the hope is that, well, maybe actually this will reach more people and make more of an
Yeah.
impact in a wider context than just this one jerk.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, but like, I guess like if you actually do care about the person themselves, like a kind of very open-minded and
Kind of message. Yeah.
empathetic direct message would probably be your best chance of actually kind of getting them to understand something because,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, unless they're worried about you like screenshotting it and sharing it or something, you can be a bit more open there because like you're not doing it in a public forum.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, but I guess like,
I guess
you
it
know,
just kind of, yeah, one thing I was thinking is like these kind of closed or small communities, like little Slack groups, it tends to be a bit easier to kind of have a
yeah,
brief exchange that is just kind of transient,
yeah,
and it's like, well, I mean, I guess people do manage it on Twitter. Twitter's kind of like one place where at least I don't think the posters can delete comments on their own little threads or something.
can't they? Maybe
I don't
not.
know,
I deleted
but
Twitter, so I don't know. Don't know
yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, I think you can delete your own stuff, but not other
Yeah, right.
people's stuff. But
Okay.
I don't know. It was just a thought. It was just like suppose you do kind of want to give feedback to people, but it should be a little bit public because they're making a public statement.
Yeah.
It's like kind of
Yeah.
what do you, what do you do? It just feels like it just all feels very like what's not aggressive, but like adversarial.
Yeah,
And it's just like
absolutely.
I think my nature is to always be a little bit adversarial, and I could learn to be better at that. But it's like, couldn't there also be like a forum that is just set up to not be so adversarial? You know what I
Yeah, I
mean?
wonder, like, yeah, what would that look like, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. But that
Yeah,
was just
it's
kind of,
it's real tricky. Like, honestly, I don't know. Like, I was actually kind of thinking about this a bit this morning, and it's like there's a lot of misinformation and emotion kind of driven positions right now in kind of like public discourse.
yeah,
And I think like trying to attack that from a top-down perspective of like, correcting the record and these kind of things is very, very tricky because you're in this kind of ideological space kind of at
yeah,
best where people have already kind of like picked their position. And
yeah,
even worse, like an emotional space where it's like they don't even have a position. They just want to like feel good about, getting
yeah,
angry or hating on a particular group or something like
true,
that.
true,
And they'll
no
they'll
doubt.
change their ideology like minute to minute,
Yeah,
whatever like helps foster that. That's even
yeah,
worse. But I
yeah,
guess like the thought I had is it's like really like the only the only thing that you can really rely on there is like, well, you need some kind of ground truth, right? And the problem is there's it's not immediately obvious what the ground truth is in
yeah,
terms of these high level ideological positions. It's impossible to kind of gauge it if you're just kind of like coming in as a unbiased third party, unless there's
yeah,
something very blatant going on.
yeah,
It's like, which piece of news is fake news? There's real no way of thinking about it like logically from a high level. The only way to
Yeah.
think about it is from a low level, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like, well, people need to kind of have some notion of like, well, what is a logical argument and what is like a kind of like scientific principle and things like that. And then at least that should let them kind of judge the merits of something, right?
Yeah.
And if
Yeah.
it's literally like not adaptable to anything, then it doesn't matter that much really. It's like, well, I think, there is a kind of kitten floating behind Saturn that we can't see. I feel very strongly about it, and it's like, okay, I mean, good for you. It doesn't not hurting anyone, right? But like,
Yeah.
if it does interact with the real world, then there should be some kind of like real world um, analysis that can be done on it, right? Like
Yeah.
scientific style. But
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
there's two problems. One, which is annoying, but maybe there's a way to overcome it, is some things are very complicated and actually analyzing them is next to impossible for a lot of people and
Yeah.
maybe impossible to everyone if it's complex enough.
True. True.
But maybe like the second more annoying problem is that there's like an active kind of campaign against logic and science right now, which I think
Sure.
I think like may the kind of entities that are kind of pushing this agenda may very well kind of understand the concepts that we've just talked about, and it's like, well, if I want to kind of like achieve my ridiculous goals, well, we can't have people able to like think clearly and figure out their merits, can we? We want it to be an emotional
Yeah.
argument. So
Yeah.
first of all, let's kind of like make make it remove all trust in anything experts say. Remove trust in the scientific method.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, just kind of, if possible, remove any consideration for even basic logic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Undermine modus ponens.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad we stayed on the topic of logic with our J program we made.
Exactly.
And that was
Exactly.
thing. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Well, that was it. That was my only thought.
Thanks, Noon.
Yeah. Good.
Oh, we said we were going to try and get a guest or something, didn't we?
Yeah. 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 Should
Who did?
we?
Yeah, let's
I
try and
didn't
do
have
that for
anyone in
next
mind.
week.
Yeah.
I'll
Who
just
could we
reach out
get?
to someone. Well, I guess like a friend or someone who's
Yeah.
doing something interesting. It might be interesting to, rather than try and get them to do a meetup talk, just have like an interview style,
I like it.
Chat. Might be fun.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'll catch you next
Call
week
it
then.
the triality.
The
The triality.
triality. Oh, that's another great name. That's gotta be included.
All right. I'll catch you next week.
All right. See you then.
See you.